Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well as usual. In this video, I want to talk to you about association or shirk. Quran calls it the Arabic word for it is shirk. In English, we call it association. And that's when you associate someone else or something else or some other deity with Allah, not only in terms of just worshiping them, but more importantly in judgment, in legislature, in issuing fatwa, as they call it in Islamic world. So, but before we get to those verses about shirk and association, I need to share with you some verses from chapter 5 in the Quran. So this is from chapter 5 in the Quran. And I'm not going to go through the entire verse because it's going to take a long time. So feel free to stop this video to read these verses in Arabic or the translation, or go to the Quran and read them yourself. But let's start with verse number 44 of chapter 5. So the verse talks about the Torah and then at the end of it, and I'm going to start reading from here. At the end of it, it says, "So do not fear the people. Fear me, nor trade my verses for a fleeting gain." What verses? Talking about the verses of Allah. The verses are of our Creator in the Torah, in the Gospel, or in the Quran. It doesn't matter. "And those who do not legislate or issue fatwa or judge." So the word used is وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ. It means those who do not issue verdict, they don't issue fatwa or judge, or they don't legislate بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ, by what Allah sent down. فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. They are the true disbelievers. So here it doesn't say by the hadith or by any, it says by what Allah sent down. So what is it that Allah sent down to us? It's His book. Look, actually, if you go up here at the beginning of the verse, Allah clarifies it for us, because Allah knows the future. Our Creator knows the future just like He knows the past, just like He knows that the worshippers of Akbar, the devil worshippers and the devil, are going to come and say, "Oh, the hadith is from God too. Allah sent down the hadith," and so on and so forth. That's not the case. This is only talking about Allah's book. Look at the beginning. It says, "Inna anzalna Tawrah." It says, we. Here they have translated as revealed, but it's the same. But he says, "We sent down the Torah." So he's talking about the Torah, containing guidance and light, by which the prophets who submitted themselves to Allah, the prophets and Nabiyun, I'm going to highlight this here for you, and Nabiyun who submitted themselves to our Creator, made a judgment. They legislated. They issued fatwa. So basically Allah, what did Allah send down? The Torah. Allah sent down the Torah, and the prophets used the Torah to issue judgment, to legislate, to issue fatwa. They didn't use the hadith. They didn't use Talmud. They didn't use these other books that are currently very popular in Judaism to issue fatwa. Quran tells us that they use the Torah. And what is the Torah? Torah is what Allah sent down to them. By the same token, Quran is what Allah sent down to us. So let's go to the next verse. So this is the next verse, verse number 45. And I'm just going to read the end of it. Please feel free to read it yourself. And I'm going to start reading from here in Arabic and in English from here. It says, "And those," right here, and those who do not legislate, who do not issue fatwa, who do not judge by what Allah has sent down, they are truly the wrongdoers. فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمِينَ. These are the people who don't issue, they don't use what Allah has sent down. They do extra. They associate other things and then they issue fatwa and legislate. So I'm going verse by verse, look at this, how important this is, that how many verses Allah has revealed in the Quran about this. And then the next verse, 46, is about the gospel. And then the Quran at 47 says, so let the people of the gospel, Ahlul and Injil, people of the gospel, judge or legislate or issue fatwa by what Allah has revealed or, as I mentioned, sent down in it. In what? In the gospel. Basically, don't go to other books. Only focus on the gospel. One original gospel. And those, then Allah says, and those who do not legislate or issue fatwa or judge by what Allah has sent down are truly the disobedient ones. Again, Allah is teaching the believers at the time of the Prophet and the Prophet himself that you should always use the book of Allah to legislate and to issue fatwa and to judge. Not by anything else, just the book of Allah. Focus on it, concentrate on it. And then the next verse, verse number 48, Allah turns towards the Prophet and says, and we have sent down to you, O Prophet does not exist here, just this is the added, this is from Sahih International. And we have sent down to you this book with the truth. And then right after that it says, so judge, legislate, issue fatwa between them by what? By what Allah has sent down. So what has Allah sent down? The book. This book, the Quran. Is that clear? Basically, Allah does not give any authority to any hadith or any saying from the devils. Very Sahih Bukhari in here. Very Sahih Muslim in here. Where's the various books of hadith that the worshippers of Akbar, Shia, Sunni, it doesn't matter, they follow? Where is this? The only authority is for the book. It says, we have sent down to you this book. And then right after that, see the arrow, it says, so judge, legislate, issue fatwa between them by what Allah has sent down. And then Allah commands the Prophet, and do not follow their whims, their desires over the truth that has come to you. So even back then, there was pressure on the Prophet to deviate from the book of Allah, even back then, and use other sources to judge and to issue fatwa. So Allah is warning His Prophet that, hey, do not do that. Only and only focus and use the book of Allah. Allah tells the same thing to those who follow the Torah and to those who follow the gospel. And then in the next verse, verse number 49, Allah again confirms that this is really double verification, double confirmation, double commandment. Then Allah again says, and judge or legislate, issue fatwa between them by what Allah has sent down. And do not follow their desires. And beware, be aware. So they do not lure you away from some of what Allah has sent down to you. So basically it says, be very careful. Don't deviate from this. Only and only follow what Allah has sent down and it clarifies for us what Allah has sent down. It says the book, which means the Quran. So in all of these verses that I read for you, did you see any evidence of Allah pointing to some other book and using that as a source of authority, source of legislation, source of fatwa? Of course not. Only and only the book of Allah has to be used for legislation, for fatwa, for issuing verdict, religious decree. So now that you know this, we can actually talk a little bit more about association and shirk. But before we get started on that, I want to share with you the next verse, verse number 50, because remember, Allah knows the future, the past, the present. It's an open book, so He knows what's going to happen in the future. He knows it. That's why He tells us what's going to happen. It says, أَفَحُكْمَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ. It means, is it the judgment? Is it the legislature? Is it the fatwa of ignorance? This translation has put pre-Islamic ignorance, which is true, that they seek. Remember, the Umayyads were munafiqeen. They were the hypocrites. They were pretending to believe in Allah and His Prophet and His book. But they didn't. At the right opportunity, they rebelled and they changed their religion and they tried to revive that old pre-Islamic idolatry religion, and they succeeded. They succeeded. But I just wanted you to see that. And now let's go back to the verses about association. The first verse I want to share with you is 106 of chapter 12. It says, and most of people will not believe in Allah except while they are associators. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. So majority of people will say they believe in Allah, but they will be associators and they will be mushrikeen. So that begs a lot of thinking and pondering. So, and you're going to see how in the next few verses. Verse number 121 of chapter 6. It says, and do not eat of that upon which the name of Allah has not been mentioned. For indeed it is grave disobedience. And indeed, so here Allah is giving you behind the scenes. Here Allah is giving you and I something that we did not know. Allah is telling us what is happening behind the scenes. It says, and indeed the devils, وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ, the devils, لَا يُوحُونَ, they are inspiring to their allies, إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِهِمْ لِيُجَادِلُوكُمْ, so that to dispute with you. So it says Allah has issued a verdict here, right? This is Allah's verdict. Do not eat of that upon which the name of Allah has not been mentioned. That's Allah's verdict. But Allah is telling us, teaching us how things transpire in the unseen. It says now the devils, ash-shayateen, the demons, are inspiring their allies to dispute with you against this verdict. Now, how do they dispute? They bring 5 hadiths that I heard the Prophet was walking and Prophet says that yes, don't eat of that, but if that is something is written on it, or if you do something, then you are allowed to eat it. They bring several hadiths, various hadiths that so and so heard it from so and so, who had heard it from so and so, had heard it from so and so. That nonsense that he said, she said, the rumors, chain of rumors, which they call the chain of science. I have not seen a worse joke in my life than that. But anyway, so he says they bring that kind of an evidence to change this verdict, as is customary. They do it all the time. That's the whole point of that Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and all of those. It's basically the inspirations of the devils. Those books are collection of the inspirations of the devils. So they inspire, and it says, if you obey them, if you agree to that, if you obey them, then you will definitely be what? Associators. You will be mushrikun. So if you obey them, you will become associate. Allah categorizes you as a mushrik, as an associator. Ennakum la mushrikun. You will verily, without any doubt, definitely be associators. So what happened here? What happened was that other than Allah, other than God, other than our Creator, was allowed to legislate, to issue fatwa, to issue religious decree, or modify Allah's religious decree or fatwa. So that's what happened. These two items happened. And those who followed it, those who allowed it to happen, they become associators or mushrikeen. Verse number 30 to 32 of chapter 30 is very interesting. Allah gives us a warning. It says, do not be of the associators. La takunu min al-mushrikeen. Do not be of the associators. I'm going to add this. Who are these associators? Then Allah gives us a definition. And I'm quoting from the Quran. Allah gives us the full definition here. من الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا. Of those who divided their religion and became sects. Who divided their religion and became sects? Did I do it? When did this happen? This happened after the Prophet. This whole sects, Sunni sect, Shia sect, we have all these sects. They divided their religion. They turned it into sects. So, and then it says every faction, every sect is very happy and boastful in what it has. And it says, oh, I'm in the right way. And the Shia is in the wrong way. And the Shia says we are in the wrong way. And the Sunni is in the wrong way. So who are these? Allah says that these are associators. These are mushrikeen. So all current Islamic denominations are classified by the Quran, are defined by the Quran as associators or mushrikeen. Now let's look at 159 of chapter 6. It says, indeed, those who have divided their religion and become sects. We just talked about it. This previous verse was talking about it, right? Even the Arabic is the exact same. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ. Divided their religion. وَكَانُوا شَيْعًا. And became sects. Then Allah tells to the Prophet, لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ. What does that mean? It means you are not with them in anything. It means you have nothing to do with them. Allah is telling the Prophet that these people that come after you, the Sunnis, the Shia, those who follow the religion of Akbar, they worship him. They have not, these are mushrikeen. They have nothing to do with you. With their lips, they pay lip service. They say, oh, we believe in Allah and his Prophet. But with their acts, they massacred the family of the Prophet and his disciples. They changed his religion. They have reduced his book to nothing. Just some tales and stories. The entire religious authority, their legislature, is based on Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. What are these two books or the various other books that the Shia has? He said, she said. He heard from someone who heard from someone else. Unbelievable. The next verse that I want to share with you is verse number 13 of chapter 42. It says, Allah commanded to all the prophets, enjoined upon them to do only one thing. Establish the religion. Aqimuddin. Establish the religion. وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ. Do not become divided in it. This is one thing that Allah has commanded to all his prophets, that do not become divided in it. And this is the exact same things that these current Muslims did. Not the, of course they didn't do it, their fathers did it. And then Allah tells us again who these are. It says, gravely difficult for the associators, mushrikeen, kabura alal mushrikeen, gravely difficult for them is that to which you invite them. And what is that is inviting them to them? To establish their religion and do not become divided in it. You say they didn't even last like 30 years after the Prophet. They became divided. Started killing each other. And verse number 14 of chapter 42 actually tells us why this happened. Because it's a question I'm sure you're asking. Why did this happen in Islam? Allah tells us exactly why. He says, and by they, this parenthesis is from me. It says, and they, the associators who disbelieved after their prophet, they did not become divided until after the knowledge had come to them. Why this happened? Basically, Allah is telling that they knew knowledge had come to them. They knew their religion. But this happened out of jealous animosity between them. بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ. So they knew the true religion. They knew everything about the Quran. But because of that animosity that I am better than him, why he should be the Khalif, I should not be the Khalif. This is exactly what happened. Out of jealous animosity between them. They threw away the verses of Allah. And then verse number 106 and 105 of chapter 3, I love this verse. Because this verse is for the promised nation of Allah in future, so that they can learn lesson from the worshippers of Akbar and what happened to that early Islamic, early Muslim community, and how Akbar the devil misled them. So this is for them. It says, and do not be like those who became divided and differed after the clear proofs had come to them. لا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات. Says, and those will have a great punishment. It's talking about that early generation. They will have a great punishment awaiting them on that day when some faces will turn white and some faces will turn black. As for those whose faces turn black, did you disbelieve after your belief? Basically, you believed. You were some of the believers. You knew the Quran. You saw the Prophet. You heard him. Oh Muawiyah, you saw the Prophet. You heard him. But you disbelieved. You planted the seed of discord and jealous animosity amongst the Muslims, the Umayyads. Then Allah tells them that then taste the punishment for what you used to reject. So this is their story. Verse number 21 of chapter 42, it says, or do they have associates? Am lahum shuraka? Do they have associates who legislate for them in religion that which Allah has not consented to? Show me a signature from Allah that He agreed to these hadiths that you use to legislate and issue fatwa. All of you Sunni muftis and religious scholars gather together, and the Shia, all of you, and show me one evidence of consent from Allah that He told you to incorporate your hadiths, the he said, she said, the rumors, the inspiration of the devil that you follow. Show me one evidence when the Prophet said Allah is Akbar. How'd you come up with that? I bet you get Nobel Prize from Lucifer, from Iblis. And then verse number 26 of chapter 18, Allah tells us that He does not share. وَلَا يُشْرِكُ فِي حُكْمِهِ أَحَدًا. I'm reading here. He does not share or associate His legislation with anyone. He does not allow anyone else to legislate with Him. You can't associate with Him. How does Allah should say that? So how many times should say that in the Quran? And also in the Bible. In the Torah is the same thing. I can go over there and show it to you, but there's not enough time. Maybe in another video I will do that. Inshallah. Then verse number 148 of chapter 6, it says, those who associate with Allah, they say, had Allah not willed it, we would not have associated, and neither would our fathers, nor would we have prohibited anything. So basically they say, no, it's Allah's will, that it's Allah wants us. Have you talked, this is exactly, if you talk to any of these Sunni scholars, Shia scholars, the Akbar scholars, if you talk to them, that's exactly what they tell you. They say, this is Allah's will. This is God wants to get. God says that you have to follow the Prophet. And somebody saw the Prophet walking and doing this. So we have to follow it. This is God's will. And this is exact. And God knows it. I told you, God knows the past, present, future. He has heard it. He has seen it. And He knows it from beforehand. Before He created Adam, He knew this. Then in verse number 106 of chapter 6, Quran says, اتَّبِعْ مَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ. Follow what was revealed to you from your Lord. There is no deity except for Him. And turn away, وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Turn away from the associators. Why do you have to turn away from the associators? If you watch the previous video, I mentioned that because إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكِينَ نَجِسٌ. The associators are filthy, are unclean, not physically, ideologically. Because if someone comes to you and says, oh, come, let's worship the idol Mitra together. You're not going to worship idol Mitra because, hey, I don't worship any idols. But an associator comes to you and tells you, hey, I believe in Allah. I believe in His books. I believe in the Quran. And you just as soon as that happens, you let down your guard. Because you think this guy is a believer. But as you're talking, but so and so heard the Prophet, that the Prophet said his prayer 5 times. Even though Quran says it's 3 times. And they put doubts into your heart. And they change the word of Allah. They go fish down things. Oh, this is where it says prayer has to be 5 times. And another worshipper of Akbar comes and tells you that, hey, I'm a believer. I believe in the Quran. But I fast. But even though the Quran says the way you fast is by not speaking to any other human beings, but so and so heard it from the Prophet that the Prophet didn't eat or something like. This is why they are najis. They change the word of Allah constantly. That's why you have to فَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Turn away from the associators. You have to turn away from them. And this is where we come back to this verse that I showed you at the beginning. And most of them will not believe in Allah except while they are associators. So you should understand this verse very well right now. And this is the last verse I want to share with you, verse number 106 of chapter 12. It says, the example of those who were entrusted with observing the Torah, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ حُمِّلُوا التَّوْرَاةَ, but failed to do so. ثُمَّ لَمْ يَحْمِلُوهَا, they failed to uphold the Torah, is that of a donkey carrying books. So, and Muslims, if you talk to them, the current Muslims, they talk about this verse. By Allah, in whose hand is my soul, you are worse than the Jews. You have the Quran, But you don't understand it. A lot of current Muslims and people tell me, why do you talk like that? Why do you insult them? I'm not insulting them. This is what the Quran says. I'm reading that for you. I'm just simply reading this verse from the Quran. Now, if the Quran was revealed to current day Muslim, not current day, to Muslims, again, please don't get me wrong. A lot of the current day Muslims, like myself, I was one of them. We don't know. We were born in this. But early Muslims knew. They were given the Quran, but they could not uphold it. They abandoned it. And a lot of these religious scholars, again, I'm not talking to normal people. Majority of normal people don't know. But the religious scholars, they read the Quran, but they don't understand it. They read the same verses that I just showed to you, but they don't understand it. So isn't the example that of a donkey carrying books? Please, if you can leave comments and let me know. But isn't this this example, does this apply to them or not? Or is it just for, did Allah mention it just for Jews? Aren't we worse? That we say our Allah is Akbar? Who is Akbar? Or we change the way we have to perform salah? Or we change the way that we have to fast? We stone people to death? Where in the Quran does it say you have to stone people to death? Nowhere. It's in the Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Or you have to cut people's hands? Where in the Quran does it say cut people's hands? And change the calendar and so on and so forth? Peace and blessings to all of you.